huge audience obviously means that a lot of people care about this issue. I was hoping maybe you could do me a favor real fast and raise your hand if you had a drink before you came here. I really wish I could raise my hand, but I didn't.
Mostly research was where we started. What are college students confronted with? What are the indicators of binge drinking, and what do we need to do to stop that? And the big thing was that people wanted to focus on immediately was education. And one of the things we found from our peers and from the different studies that we looked at is that education alone just wasn't effective there. We also looked at environment. And both the studies, NIAA and Harvard, which are the two most well-known studies and best studies, indicate that residents in the Greek House and residence halls in particular were indicators for binge drinking. And so we looked at the impact that the environment had in those particular areas and the fact that residence halls and Greek houses are primarily inhabited by underage students. And so we looked at changing that environment and making fraternity sororities and residence halls alcohol-free.
I see three major problems in the current policy. First, and most importantly, this policy is jeopardizing the futures of our students. And I don't think that's the way that a university family should treat its individuals. That if you get us one strike, you should have that expunged after a year of good behavior. Students should be able to separate their time at the university versus their own personal free time. Currently, if you go to Dallas or you go to Tulsa and you get in trouble there, like Jordan said, like Trey said, not only do you have to go through their disciplinary process, you have to go to their court, pay their fine, but then also you come back to Norman and you come back to your university, you have to pay another fine. And you have to go through more appeals processes for the same offense. Again, that sounds like double jeopardy. And the student code even says, Section 2, that no student should be subjected to double jeopardy, punishment twice for the same offense. This policy has been controversial for a year and a half. It was controversial when it first was implemented, and people are still complaining about it. Students are still talking about it. Nobody is really happy with the way it's been done so far. But no one has ever actually formed together to make any concrete and specific examples of things that need to be changed. Campaign 21 is doing that.
On some levels, we do agree with having an alcohol policy. It's good for the women of our organizations to have two entities that they are accountable to both to our chapters and to the university. But I think where the gray area comes is with the group regulations. For us, those are unclear. We don't know if 2 members of a chapter could result in an organizational strike or 20 members of a chapter. And I think it's also frustrating to not be able to know exactly why people have or have not been getting strikes for different reasons. But just to reiterate, whether or not this policy changes, sororities will still not allow alcohol in their facilities.
Whether we like it or not, the statistics show that affiliation with a Greek organization and living in a Greek residence is an indicator for more binge drinking and underage drinking than being just a regular student. And one of the things that we found is the majority of the students living in fraternity houses were under 21. And I think probably the one thing that I'm pleased the most with regard to the policy is just the fact that students are having to think about drinking before they drink. They have to think about, how am I going to get home? If I'm hosting this party, what am I going to do to make sure there isn't underage drinking? How am I going to be safe? And even if they're thinking about how am I going to get around this policy, at least they're thinking about it, because with the situations that we had developing in our fraternity houses, in our residence halls, and in other places on our campus, was the fact that nobody had to think about it. Things were just happening spontaneously. One of the things that our code points out is it's a privilege to be a student at the University of Oklahoma, and we hold our students to a higher standard. And we're concerned about pushing things off campus and having this become a situation where students aren't accountable for their actions off campus. So that was the logic behind the off campus.
At the sobriety checkpoint forum that Student Congress held last semester, they said that if they were employing the same number of officers at in the old-fashioned, just in control cars by themselves, they actually would get more DUIs
that way than they are through the new sobriety checkpoint fashion, but that they're trying to increase visibility and it's raising awareness. And so they're willing to take those loss of DUIs to hopefully prevent underage drinking. So
I think that the alcohol policy only pushed the problem off campus. I think that, well, I can't speak for 2 years ago when we had the tragic event on this campus, but I can say that now I would argue that it would be safer to drink in a fraternity house than it would to drink off campus, with risk managers in every fraternity house, with brotherhood, be your brother's keeper. I'm pretty sure every house has that. And with older members present to regulate things, I really think it's a better environment than drinking in houses off campus. And like Clark said, the policy wasn't put into place to encourage drinking and driving, but that is a byproduct of the policy, whether we like it or not.
I don't believe that belonging to a fraternity, that alcohol is the primary thing and primary reason that anybody joins a fraternity, a sorority, or any other organization. If it is, then I guess there really is a problem. But, we wanted to create an environment that was safe for our students.
And we're not asking to be exempt from the alcohol policy. We were just asking for some changes that we think would make it a little bit more fair, since we are really the only people that had, well, not the only people, but I'd argue we had to accommodate the alcohol policy more than anyone else.
One of the problems is underage drinking. And so you're really caught in a crux if you think about it. If you permit underage drinking, in essence, you're condoning it. And one of the things that we looked at, again, was those environmental factors and trying to offset that with programs like the Safe Ride and making sure that when students have parties off campus where alcohol is present, that they think about how they're going to get students home safely, all those different kinds of things. So certainly I can understand that perspective, but that was our response to that.
Than having a beer in a fraternity house.
That's absolutely ludicrous. That is absolutely ludicrous. For anybody who makes a decision to drink and drive, that is the decision that they make. And if you put yourself in that position, that's you that's done that. And certainly the university can't take responsibility for creating an environment that's alcohol-free, and then somebody goes outside that environment and makes a decision that they're going to go ahead and drink and drive because they can't have a beer in their fraternity or their sorority house or their residence hall. So drinking and driving is a situation that you put yourself in when you do that.